president of the National Bar Association, representing 66,000 black lawyers, judges, and legal professionals, and the medical professionals at the National Medical Association Annual Convention. Especially as we talk about this important topic of how violence, especially gun violence, affects our community, how it affects the psychology of our community and the courts and the legal proceedings in our community. So I want to start there. I want to talk to you about due process of the law and this notion that the laws and the legal proceedings must be fair for all parties, no matter who those parties are, whether it's the police officers or whether it's little black and brown people who are not educated, who make less than minimum wage, but due process says the system has to be fair to everybody. And when it's not fair, I submit to you, it has a profound effect on not just American society, but especially African American society. This due process law in the 14th Amendment is very important, especially when you make it real. I know Congresswoman Lee, I went to the 50th anniversary of Selma a week after the grand jury came back with the Michael Brown decision not to indict the police officer. And I remember Dr. Mitchell going on Meet the Press, and I said that we have to have the Department of Justice quit sanctioning the killings of unarmed people of color. And Commissioner Proctor, some people were offended by that. And I scratched my head and I said, well, you know, I'm not a rocket scientist, I'm not a medical doctor, but if we got all these unarmed people of color getting killed over and over again, and nobody's been held accountable in any way, fashion, or form, well, ain't that the very definition that you're sanctioning the killers? You're condoning the killers? You're not doing anything about it. And I'm not talking about these controversial things, quote unquote. I'm talking about the ones that are on video, the ones we see with our own eyes. Chief Dixon, the one like Eric Ramsey in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where the black guy's running away and he then stops, gets on the ground, surrender. They have an old white man who is not a police officer, he's just rich and he wants to play cops and robbers, and they have it on video. He comes up, Dr. Mitchell, and he says he's going to pull his taser, and he pulls his gun and blows his head off while he's laying there on the ground. And then you look at Tamir Rice in Cleveland, Ohio, who I had the honor of representing his family, and a 12-year-old kid playing on the playground. Greg, less than 1 second. Less than 1 second. Don't take my word for it. Go look at the video. The police don't even stop the car before he shoots this 12-year-old kid. And he says, Dr. Mitchell, he says that they gave Tamir Rice 3 warnings to put his hands up and drop the weapon. But you look at that video with your own eyes and you decide whether they're telling the truth or not. But again, nobody's held accountable. Nothing happens to the police officers. And then the Breedlove case also in Cleveland. That was the case, Congresswoman Lee, where they got up on top of the roof of the car for an African-American man and woman running a traffic light. They have a high-speed chase. The officer gets up and shoots 142 shots into the car, and nothing happens to him. They do charge him, the jury find him not guilty, but because the police unions are so powerful, after all of that there, they are forced to hire the police officers back after they shot 142 shots on the roof of the car. It gets worse. Alicia Thomas here in Los Angeles, you know, her only crime, Isaiah, was the fact that she believed the Safe Harbor Act applied to her. She has some mental issues. She took her 2 children, 12-year-old son, 3-year-old daughter, to LAPD substation, dropped them off, and had the grandmother's phone number in the pocket, left and went home. LAPD officers came to her house and tried to arrest her for child abandonment. And it's all on video. She says, I can't breathe 19 times when they hog-tied her and dragged her to the back of the police car, and the officer kicked her in her female organs 7 times while she's at the police car. And nobody is held accountable. Then it goes on and on. Jonathan Crawford in the Walmart in Cincinnati, Ohio, all on video. The person lies and says he has a gun. He's carrying the BB gun, doing exactly what Walmart wants every customer to do. Look at the advertising and buy our products. And that's what he's doing. And the police in less than 2 seconds come and kill Jonathan Crawford. Again, nothing happens to anybody. Philando Castile, recently Minnesota, have the honor of representing his father. I mean, he's following every instruction that the police department tells him to do, but yet he's still killed. And the question remains whether it's going to be swept under the rug and nobody's held accountable. And so it's just so troubling when you think about the psychological effect that this has on our communities. And to be more direct, the psychological effect it has on the parents and the families and the loved ones of these individuals who are killed. And all violence matters, black on black crime, but the people who are supposed to protect and serve you, you scratch your head when it's black on black crime. I'm part of the court system. I see the easiest thing in the world to do is to convict a black or brown person of a crime. And so we know they're going to be held accountable. I wrote an op-ed piece for Time magazine after these stranger killings in Baton Rouge with Alton Sterling and Philando Castile in Minnesota, and the police officers in Dallas and the police officers in Baton Rouge. And I said that we know without a shadow of a doubt the people who kill those law enforcement officers are going to be held accountable to the full extent of the law for the senseless gun violence. The thing we don't know is the two that look like you and me that were not wearing a badge and a gun, will anybody be held accountable for their senseless gun violence? And that remains the question that we all have to answer amongst ourselves. And so I think about these families, these mothers and fathers. You know, the mothers of the movement, they did an outstanding job at the Democratic Convention. 4 of my clients were there speaking, and you know, they found a way to turn the pain into a purpose. But I submit to you, there's still a hole in their heart that will never, ever be filled. You know, a mother and a father losing their child is just so unnatural. Think about the psychological effect. Some of you all have sons and daughters. The effect your child been taken and nobody's been held accountable. You know, it's so unnatural, it goes against just the complete natural order of things. We have words if your parent dies, you know, we call that an orphan. If your spouse is killed, we call that a widower. There is no word, Isaiah, there is no word, Dr. Mitchell, that defines when you lose a child, because it's so difficult of a thing. We can't even come up with a word to define it. So just think about that for a second. The psychological effect it has on these parents. And then the psychological effect it has on siblings. You know, these siblings who, brothers and sisters, are killed in some of the most unbelievable ways. We're dealing with one today. I was talking to Chief Dixon, just happened. Her name is Corey Gaines. She's the 9th black woman this year that was shot and killed by police officers. And Chief Dixon can talk about this in great detail about the right police procedures, but it don't take a rocket scientist to see some things are just not justifiable. And I think he said just because it's lawful don't make it any less awful, because she is, a warrant is being served on her and her boyfriend. Her boyfriend has a assault charge that he has a warrant for, and she has a warrant for a traffic citation. They come to the house, they bang on the door, the landlord let them in the door, and this is just happening now. My office was trying to tell me before I got here this afternoon. They come through the door, she has a little six shooter, she's not unarmed, but she says, if y'all don't leave my house, you know, I'm gonna shoot you. And she has her 5-year-old son there on her arm, and they have this standoff. And I just don't understand it. And I know it's a great institution. I'm glad we're all working together, Dr. Mitchell. But I don't understand if a traffic citation, why do you shoot her 4 times? You can just go away. What's the worst will happen? She'll get another ticket? I mean, it just defies logic. And think about the effect that has on our community, saying they shoot us for anything. They kill us for any reason. You know, and the fact that we all know that death penalty cases, black men make up 6% of the population of America, but we make up over 50% of the people who we kill legally in America on death row. And we know that the biggest indicator for you going on death row and being killed is to kill a white person. Now, if you kill a black person, the statistics fall dramatically how you're going to be punished and sentenced. So that has a psychological effect on you as well. You know, when you're thinking about committing a violent act, our society tells you, if not implicitly, they tell you subtly. They tell you that, hey, if you kill this black or brown person, chances are you might go to prison, but you're going to get less time than killing a white person. Those are the statistics. The statistics also tell us that 1 in 3 black men in America are going to go to jail. They're going to go to jail. That's what the statistics say. So the psychological effect on that is, I don't care what the charge is, how trumped up it is, there could be no evidence at all. You know, the reality is that you go to jail, and so you say, hold on, we go to jail for anything, but people kill us, we see it on video, and nothing happens to them. The psychological effect that has on a community. And so I think a lot about what we have to do is we have to find a way to work together. And I like what Dr. Mitch and Dr. Cromwell were saying, because as lawyers, one of our hardest things in court to do is we have to prove everything. And so we have, if you take an accurate medical history, and when they are in there and you start talking about the history of, is there violence in your family, or has there ever been police abuse against you? That's an important thing that's helpful. I will tell you, we're dealing with the case of the 13 black women that were raped by the white police officer in Oklahoma. And rape is a violent act. I'm sure nobody would argue with that. But do you know that for the longest time, thanks to the help of people like Kerry Washington, and then we finally got the word out, because it was the worst rape case that nobody had ever heard of. I mean, I'm begging my friends at CNN and CBS and ABC, hey, this is horrible. Look at this case. This officer, this rapist with a badge, rapes 13 black women, and nobody's saying a word about it. I mean, CNN, nobody's saying that. Can you imagine just for a second, Bill, imagine if these were 13 white women that a police officer were raping. Man, we could never hear about it enough. It'll be on CNN every night, Fox every night. Nancy Grace will be crying every night. You know, it'll be everywhere. But it was something about these sisters they said was unrapeable. You know, no fact pattern we could give you where it could be defined as rape. And so think about the psychological effect that has when these things are happening in our community over and over again. And It's just such a double standard because there's no deterrent to it. There's no deterrent because nobody's held accountable. Think about these police officers. The great Johnny Cochran here in Los Angeles, you know, we would talk at the National Bar Association conventions, and Johnny would say, well, if every time they shot a black man in the back, they had to pay $1 million, there'd be less black men being shot in the back. Well, we see now that's not the case. All these cases I represent, we get big civil settlements. You know, the municipalities pay out millions of dollars, but yet it keeps happening. I mean, it keeps happening because none of these officers are going to jail. They're not being held accountable. It's no skin off their back. And many times they get these GoFundMe pages and they get $1 million for killing a little black or brown person. So I submit to you, we all have a role to play. We all have something to do. I know we're working on this Civil Rights Institute with Tennessee State University, where hopefully we can keep those statistics, Dr. Mitchell, and because nobody's keeping track of how many of us they're killing. Nobody's keeping track of that. And so we have to have systems in place that we have to create. We have to do something. I ain't asking you to go on the front line and march with the young people, Black Lives Matter, but we all have a role to play. We all can do something. And you have to think about it because, but by the grace of God, that can be your child. And I know you say, oh, that only happens in those poor sections of town. But I submit to you, if Trayvon Martin was a cautionary tale for anybody, you know, these gated communities, they don't think our children are supposed to be there. Amen? And so we all have something to do. If not, shame on us if people don't do anything if it comes to your doorstep. So I conclude with where I started. Due process of the law. This whole notion that it has to be fair. This whole notion that Justice Thurgood Marshall said that the basis of the U.S. Constitution is simply this, that a black baby born to a black mother, the most uneducated black mother, the most inarticulate black mother, the most impoverished black mother, has the same exact rights as a white baby born to a white mother, the most affluent white mother, the most articulate white mother, the most educated white mother, just by virtue of that baby drawing its first breath as an American. Now, Justice Marshall concluded, I know that's not the case in America today, but I challenge anybody to say that's not what makes America the great beacon of hope and justice for all the world to marvel. So in standing up for the Trayvon Martins and the unknown Trayvon Martins of the world, helps America live up to its creed of being this great beacon of hope and justice for all the world to marvel. And that's what I say to you, my brothers and sisters of the National Medical Association. We have to make America live up to its creed to give due process of the law to all Americans, no matter how poor they are, what ethnicity they come from, what job they got, how uneducated they are. This is our goal. This is our desire. This is why God blessed us with these fancy degrees, these medical degrees, these law degrees. And so I just say to you all, we got to make them know that our children's lives matter too. Thank you.